Welcome to the History of Advertising Part 5. Over the last 4 videos, we explored how advertising had changed from the Egyptian use of papyrus to the modern day commercial. Even the use of commercials themselves had changed from the 1950s to the 2000s. Let's compare a Rice Krispies commercial from the 1950s and then compare one from the 2000s and see what assumptions we can make about the changing of advertising in terms of commercials over 50 years.
Snap, what a happy sound. Snap is the happiest sound I've found. You may clap, rap, tap, slap, but snap makes the world go round. Snap, crackle, Rice Krispies. I say it's crackle, the crispy sound. You gotta have crackle or the clock's not wound. Geese cackle, feathers tickle, bells buckle, beats pickle, but crackle makes the world go round. Snap, crackle, Rice Krispies. I insist that pop's the sound. The best is missed unless pop's around. You can't stop hopping, the cereal's popping. Pop makes the world go round. Snap, crackle, Rice Krispies. Let's go for Kellogg's Rice Krispies. Snap, it's crackle, what a happy sound. You gotta have the happiest sound not found. You can't stop hopping, the cereal's popping. Snap, crackle, makes the world go round.
In this advertisement, we saw that the commercial itself is about a minute in length. In previous videos, we spoke about the attention span of the average American and how that has dwindled significantly over the course of half a century. This video played to the new idea of television altogether. It was very experimentational in the fact that it had both cartoons and music to sell a product. It was very simple but very powerful at the same time because people watching TV had never seen a commercial of this nature. Now let's look at a Rice Krispies commercial from the 2000s and see if we can spot the difference.
You can help me work. Good.
They're popping!
Really? Where'd the sound go?
Even when they've stopped popping,
Is it in your tummy?
they haven't stopped working. Now, every box of Kellogg's Rice Krispies cereal has antioxidants and nutrients that help support your child's immune system.
Now, one of the first things you'll notice is this commercial is only 32 seconds in length. Again, it speaks to the dwindling attention span of the average American. It also revisits some of the notions, strategies, and themes of the previous commercials we viewed. If you remember, during the 1890s, Pure soap commercials targeted your white middle-class family. Kellogg's may or may not do so intentionally, but you could see that both the mother and the daughter are very well-dressed, middle-class, perhaps upper middle-class white Americans. And this also speaks to the notion of the average American that advertising companies were trying to speak to during the 1980s and the 1990s. You'll find that during the commercials of the 2000s and the 2010s, advertising companies revisited those ideas.
They've stormed beaches
and freed countries. Protected the weak and defeated the strong. Shown courage. And
This particular commercial appeals to our patriotic senses. If you remember, during the 1940s, advertisements did the same. They tried to appeal to our senses as Americans altogether. They tried to get us to support the troops, whether in our activities at home or by joining the troops to make a difference for our country. This commercial is essentially suggesting the same thing. During the 2000s, with the war in Afghanistan and the war in Iraq, the military made commercials to appeal to our patriotic senses, our patriotic ideals, and to get us to either join the effort physically or support it by financial means or in some other form. Another connection commercials of the 2000s make to the past is the price of the commercial, the amount of money the companies spent on the commercial in order to sell their product. Now, Pepsi spent millions of dollars on this commercial in terms of special effects, costumes, advertising space, so on and so forth. Just like the Esso gas company of the 1960s and 1970s, Pepsi set to prove with this commercial that they would spend a very large amount of money to appeal to old audiences and new. Finally, some of the advertisements of the 2000s and the 2010s bring it all together. They use the comedy and sex appeal of the 1980s and the 1990s. They use the musical jingles that were associated with the 2000s. They submit a significant amount of money on the actual commercial itself. These elements all come together to make one uniquely epic commercial to appeal to a particular audience.
If you're playing to win, here's a brand new soap for you. Nope, I was wrong. This is a commercial for fruit. Nope, I was right. It's a really weird commercial for soap.
The comedy in the Old Spice commercial, along with the memorability, the perfect placement of the advertising logo, and so on and so forth, all these elements combined speak to the history of advertising and how it's very much evolved over time and it's very much stayed the same. From the sex appeal of the 1890s to the flashiness of the 2000s and the 2010s, advertisements will continue to combine the elements of old and new to try and get viewers to buy into a certain idea or product.